Chapter 17. The Pulse Within. The dark had a voice. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was the sound of hollow wings dragging across stone, of fire that had forgotten warmth, of memories so ancient they no longer knew the difference between prophecy and pain. Elric's moved through the ruins of his old throne, once carved from mountain bone and silver flame, now blackened, cracked, forgotten. But his mind had not dulled. He remembered her. Not the girl she was now. Not the witch they called queen, but Decima before she was shattered, before they tricked her into a human form, before the dragons followed her into the light and left him in the dark. He opened what remained of his wings, scarred, crooked, scaled in gray fire. "I warned them," he growled. "I warned them what would happen if she returned." His claws dragged across a circle of runes. They flared. He closed his eyes and saw the child, not yet born, not yet shaped, but glowing with both bloodlines. "Not hers," he whispered. He pressed a claw into the stone, drawing his own blood. "Mine." He wasn't alone. Far behind him, through a tunnel scorched black from ancient fire, a second pulse stirred. A shape, not human, not beast, crawled along the wall like smoke stitched into bone. It didn't speak, but it listened. It had no mouth, no eyes, no name, not anymore. But it remembered her too. Decima. The one that burned through, spell and bloodline. The one who could hear the pulse when others ran from it. The creature moved closer to Elric's, drawn by his voice. "You feel it too," Elric said without turning. "The bond is waking again." The thing hissed softly. A tremor, a warning, or maybe a prayer. "We are not ready," Elric's continued. "And neither are they. But the blood will call. It always does." He turned to the wall of the cave and traced a mark with the tip of his claw. A jagged glyph that shimmered in violet. The mark bled. "So we show them," he said quietly. "We show them what was buried. Elsewhere, above ground, beyond the ruins." Daniel sat alone on the steps of the cottage, rubbing his fingers together without realizing. Something itched beneath his skin. A restlessness he couldn't name. Inside, Decima slept. Her breathing was steady, calm. But the air around them wasn't. It felt like something was moving. Underground, or behind the trees. Something old and watching. Daniel stood and looked out over the edge of the woods. He didn't know why, but he whispered, "I'm listening." The wind didn't reply, but the pulse answered. He felt it, faint then stronger, like something had reached from the earth and touched his spine. He gasped, eyes wide, and just for a second he saw something that didn't belong. A glyph, flickering, old, then gone. He didn't understand it, but part of him recognized it. Like something buried in his blood had been tapped, and it was starting to wake. Deep underground, the glyphs continued to burn. Elric stood at the center of the circle now, wings half spread, head lowered. The flames that shimmered along his scales weren't real fire. Not anymore. They were the remnants of soul light, corrupted over centuries. Dimmed, bent, but not broken. Above him, a carving in the ceiling began to crack. Faint threads of red light leaked through the stone like veins, pulsing once. Twice, then steady. Elric raised his head slowly. "It's begun," he said. The creature beside him, the nameless one, slithered along the wall, pressing its face to the carving. It didn't speak, but the way it froze said everything. It had felt it too. The bond had changed. "What they've awakened can't be silenced," Elric whispered. "She doesn't know yet, but the child growing inside her carries more than soul and fire." He stepped back from the circle. "She carries memory, all of it, what we were, what we lost, and what they tried to bury." He turned, claws scraping over the stone floor, and began walking toward the darkest part of the tunnel, where no light lived, and no spell could survive. She will return here. One way or another, the shadows thickened behind him. And when she does, I will not be alone. Elric moved through the circle of scorched stone, past the broken pillars that once held the weight of dragonkind's vows. His claws clicked softly against the ground. Each step deliberate, his power old but not extinguished. The runes flared again behind him. Red this time. Angrier. They didn't like being disturbed. Too long had passed since any blood had fed them. He didn't care. He had waited in the dark for too long, bound to this ruin, forgotten by those who once called him brother. His eyes lifted, burning silver against the black, and he whispered into the stale air, "She'll remember me. Not as an enemy, as a shadow, a counterweight, a truth that refused to die. Let them try to protect her. Let the bond sing its pretty song. His voice dropped lower, colder. But even soulbound magic has a cost, and I remember what that cost is. Above him, a single scale of old silver fell from the broken ceiling. It shimmered faintly before vanishing into dust. Elrix didn't flinch. He simply smiled. Not cruelly, not even bitterly. Just certain. She will come. And when she does, she'll have to choose. Far above the buried ruins, in a part of the world still ruled by trees and wind, something stirred. A shimmer passed through the roots of an old ash tree. Faint, unseen, but felt. Birds scattered without reason. Leaves trembled without wind. And deep in the soil, ancient threads of magic began to pull tighter. Elrix paused mid-step, head tilting like he'd heard something that didn't belong. She's waking, he said softly. Not Decima, not yet, but something inside her, a part that had been sleeping since the old world burned. A memory sealed by blood and rebirth. The nameless creature behind him hissed through its teethless mouth, pulling itself low against the floor, as if bracing for the return of a storm it couldn't survive twice. Elrix didn't speak again. He reached the edge of the tunnel and stepped into the void, into the place no map would mark, where old gods once knelt, and dragons once bled their names into stone. He whispered one of those names now, a name even the Witches' Council had tried to erase, a name Decima would soon hear, in her dreams, in her blood, and in the fire that would not stay silent much longer.